right, let's see what happens to Donovan now. See if he gets caught. Unidentified. Dr. Schultz, IQ 127. To be the superintendent of a school district like Hardcastle, with its 47 buildings and more than 30,000 students, was a huge responsibility. A lot of administrators would have hundreds of complicated rules to follow. I only had one: no screw-ups. So when I took time out of my busy schedule and burdensome duties to attend a middle school basketball game, I expected to see orderly students, good sportsmanship, and happy alumni. What I did not expect to see was a giant metal ball blasting into the gymnasium, scattering players like ten pins. Not only did it create a dangerous situation, but it also reflected very badly on the Hardcastle schools. Miraculously, no one was injured. Still, there was a lot of chaos as the parents of the players rushed to their sons on the floor in an effort to protect them from whatever this outslot was. I knew instantly that globe was part of the statue of the Atlas that stood on the knoll overlooking the school, and it certainly hadn't rolled itself down the hill. I raced through the shattered door and onto the lawn. All I could see was a ribbon of crushed grass all the way back to the figure of Atlas, who looked peculiar, bent under the weight of absolutely nothing. The culprit lay in the flattened path, raised up on his elbows, staring at the damaged guilty. "You there," I called. The boy tried to scramble up and run, but he couldn't get any traction on the squashed turf. By the time he found his feet, I was upon him, and he was caught. "Come with me to my office." His shoulders slumped. "Yeah, okay." He looked as worried as he ought to be. I drew some small satisfaction from that. The administration building was on the very same campus, but the boy didn't speak on way over, not even to protest his innocence. A fat lot of good that would have done him. I had had him dead to rights, and the evidence of 400-pound bronze spear and the damage it caused spoke plainly about what he had done. At last we reached my office, and I glared at him across my desk. "Do you know who I am?" He shook his head and had the grace to look a little scared. "I am Dr. Schultz, superintendent of the Hardcastle Independent School District, and I'll have your name and your school name right now." "Donovan Curtis. I go here, Hardcastle Middle, where it happened." I wrote the information on a piece of paper on the cluttered desk in front of me. "Well, Donovan Curtis, I don't have to tell you that you're in big trouble right now. You're lucky that no one was hurt or even killed by the stunt of yours. Why would you do such a thing?" "It was an accident." If he thought he could get away with an excuse like that, he had picked the wrong administrator. "A giant metal ball doesn't plow through a building by accident." He spoke up again. "I hit the statue with a branch, but I didn't think the world would fall off." "You didn't think—" My secretary, Mrs. DeBourbon, came bustling in, looking worried. "I'm so sorry to disturb you, Dr. Schultz, but you're needed urgently back at the gym. Someone called the fire department from a cell phone, and you're the only one with authority to send them away." She frowned. "Nothing's on fire, is it?" "No, of course not." I was halfway to the door when I hesitated. What to do with the boy? He was looking hopeful as if he were home free, but believe me, he wasn't. It would serve him right if I left him sitting there cooling his heels while I went to deal with this mess he made, but who knew how long that would take? By now, those firefighters could be finding code violations in the gym, and I had a dinner meeting across town. I skewered him with my most severe expression. "You can go. I'll send for you tomorrow morning, and we can continue this discussion." He was out of there like a shot. I wasn't far behind him with Mrs. DeBourbon called me back. "I'm sorry to bother you again, but Student Services needs a list of the new candidates for the gifted program." I sighed. Did everything have to pass through me? I was only one person. "It's on my desk, Cynthia. You can't miss it." What a nightmare. There was damage to the gym floor in addition to the doors, which were a total loss. The founder that had made the statue had gone out of business 5 years ago, so good luck getting a replacement globe for Atlas. The district's insurance agent was on vacation for the next 2 weeks. I missed my dinner meeting with my dinner, but by the time I got back to my office, I was almost insane with aggravation. This is exactly why I couldn't tolerate screw-ups. There was no such thing as just one. The first led to the second, pretty soon they were coming at you in battalions. I needed to accomplish one real thing on this miserable day, and I knew exactly what it was going to be. I was going to call that boy's parents and let them know the damage and chaos their son vandalized had caused. I scanned my desk for the paper where I'd written, His name. It was gone. I scurried through every item on that desk, and not just once. Nothing. Cynthia? But she had already left for the day. How could this be? That boy must have snuck back and stolen the paper, hoping I'd forget his name among the 30,000 students I'm responsible for. Well, he was wrong about that. His name was... Sudden overpowering charging. I had broken my only rule. Unexplained. Donovan Curtis, IQ 112. If I didn't die of stress that night, I probably never will. Each time the phone rang, I was convinced it was Schultz, calling to rat me out to Mom and Dad. Every knock at the door meant the police were here to arrest the guy who bombed a basketball game with the weight of the world. Whenever my dad's BlackBerry pinged, I was positive that it was a news flash. It didn't make for good sleeping. It didn't make for any sleeping. Mom was shocked at the sight of me over the breakfast table. I was studying, I told her with a yawn wide enough to drive a truck through. You look like Wile E. Coyote after the Roadrunner dropped him off the cliff, said my sister Katie. She was 26 and she had moved back with us while her husband was deployed in Afghanistan with the Marine. Thanks, Mrs. Goodyear, I retorted absently. Katie was 7 months pregnant, possibly with a baby hippo. One more wisecrack about my sumo stomach and I will sit on you, she threatened. You think this is a vacation for me? Not for you, for Brad, I returned. He's got an 11,000-mile buffer zone from all this sweetness and light. I regretted the instant the words passed my lips. Normally the two of us could go back and forth insulting each other for hours, but Katie lapsed into a melancholy silence, a far-off expression in her eyes. It wasn't hard to figure out what the cause of her reverie. The father of her unborn child was on the opposite side of the world in a war zone, and even though First Lieutenant H. Bradley Patterson spent most of his time inside the armored shell of a tank, it had to be on her mind that her husband was in risky line of work. Mom came over and placed her hands reassuringly on Katie's shoulders. Brad's surrounded by the best trained people with the best equipment money can buy. But her daughter's mind turned to elsewhere. Beatrice is coming. Beatrice? Mom echoed. You mean Brad's dog? I thought she was staying with your mother-in-law. She was, Katie explained miserably. But Fanny called me this morning. She says she can't cope and she's coming this afternoon to drop off Beatrice. We're getting a dog? I asked, mildly interested. That mutt hates me, Katie moaned. That's the reason she was supposed to go to Fanny in the first place. Beatrice will never forgive me for taking her place in Brad's life. For all I know, she blames me for getting him shipped out, like I make deployment decisions for the Marine Corps. She's your dog too, Katie, Mom lectured, and would be delighted to take her for a while Brad's serving his country. Right, Donnie? I'm not touching the poop scoop, I said firmly. My mind was on Schultz, not dogs that morning. At school, I waited to be called to the office. Between classes, I searched for summons tape to my locker. Nothing. The anxiety was eating me up inside. When the PA announcement finally came, and almost a relief, would Donovan Curtis please come to the office? Donovan Curtis to the office? It was the longest walk I've ever taken. At each open door, hostile faces glowered at me. Remember, I was still the guy who disrespected our beloved basketball team. When the news got around that I was also responsible for unleashing the runaway globe that bowled out the gym, I was really going to be public enemy number one. At last, I rounded the corner at the glass and reception area came into view. To my surprise, the avenging angel waiting for me was not Dr. Schultz, but Mr. Fender. When you serve a detention with me, Mr. Curtis, you serve it to the end, and you don't leave until I tell you it's time. He went on for a while, trying to scare me, I guess. The poor guy had no way of knowing that considering the payback I was expecting from Schultz, a rampaging grizzly couldn't scare me. He cut me loose, though, explaining that thanks to the damage to the gym, we students had suffered enough. I had a sneaky suspicion Schultz was going to see it that way. I couldn't say how much anybody had actually suffered from the disaster of the basketball game was definitely the hot topic at school. When the glass blew out, I thought it was an explosion, like a terrorist attack. Did you see the statue with the top part missing? It looks like my grandfather when his back goes out. I heard the gym floor is permanently messed up. When they catch the guy who did it, they're going to hang him on a meat hook. Yeah, Nussbaum chimed in. I pity that poor loser. His life isn't worth a used Kleenex. He turned to me. So, Donovan, when do you think you're going to get busted? Shh! I I pulled the Daniels into the boys' room and checked the stalls for possible eavesdroppers. This is no joke. The walls have ears. Dude, this one was offended. We'll never rat out a friend. Listen, that call was a false alarm. Just Fender for skipping out detention. I don't understand why. Schultz hasn't come after me yet. Maybe he doesn't know who you are, Sanders suggested. I shook my head. He wrote down my name. I told him where I go to school. He's the superintendent. He's got access to every file and record there is. Yeah, did you pick the wrong guy to get caught by or what? Nussbaum agreed. The head honcho of the whole district? I'm wondering if it's not as bad as it looked, I mused in a low voice. A little cleanup, a little wood polish. I've heard they're going to have to redo the whole gym floor, Sanders put in. It costs like zillions of dollars. And don't forget the glass doors, Nussbaum added. You're a dead man walking. I totally agreed. So why wasn't it happening all day long and the following days too? I squirmed while rumors spread like the head lice and the Daniels predicted my downfall. There was no escape from the tension at home, where reports of firefights in Afghanistan dominated CNN. Then, on Wednesday, Katie's mother-in-law dropped off the dog. The times I've seen Beatrice, she was a rocket-powered hairball. But the cinnamon chow-chow that slunk into our house was listless and mewling. What's wrong with her, Mom asked. She's dying, Franny declared dramatically, and tried to walk to the door. Katie held out her arm. How do you know? Excuse me, sorry. How do you know? Did she get hit by a car? Is she sick? Her mother-in-law wasn't interested in the details. I can't cope with this at my age. And with that, she was gone. Mom reached down to pat the dog. Beatrice snapped at her hand. She tossed a warning growl over her shoulder at Katie, just in case she might be contemplating a similar move. She's too mean to die, I observed. She can't die, Katie said tragically. Brad loves her. Brad loves you too, I returned. What does that have to say about Brad? He'll never forgive me if something happens to her. Well, that's not exactly fair, is it? Mom put in. If anything went wrong, it was Fanny's watch, not yours. That's her whole modus operandi, Katie argued. The minute she saw the writing on the wall, she dumped the dog on me. And how can we take care of Beatrice if she won't let us go near her? As if it was an answer, Beatrice picked herself off the floor, walked over to me, and lay down at my feet. Donovan, my mother explained. What did I do? I didn't do anything. Beatrice likes you, Kitty said in a whisper. So you can look after her, Mom reasoned like this was a huge honor. I declined. Forget it. Besides, if Brad is such a baby about Beatrice, you have to wonder if he's the right person to be in charge of a $20 million tank. But when Beatrice refused to eat, I had to hand feed her a few lumps of liver-flavored kibble. When it was time to take her out, I was the only one she would allow to put her leash on. When Katie made her a bed, I knew I was going to have a roommate. Just call me Dog Whisperer Donovan, as if I didn't have enough hassles. Dad came home at 6, bringing the mail. There's a letter from the school, Donnie. Is there anything you want to tell us before we open it? By that time, my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth, so I just shook my head and waited for the axe to fall. Who knew how much trouble I was in? Suspended? Probably expelled? Not out of the question, especially since Schultz thought I'd done it on purpose. I had done it on purpose, the hitting the statue part anyway. While Dad read, I monitored the telltale vein in the top left corner of his forehead. It bulged a little, but not nearly as much as it had during the aftermath of the toupee liftoff. That had to be considered an encouraging sign. At last, he handed me a letter. You have an explanation for this? Where would I even start? My eyes fell on the page. To the parents of Donovan Curtis, the time has come to recognize your child's hard work and commitment to excellence as a student in the Hardcastle Independent School District. This letter is to inform you that Donovan has been selected to attend the Academy of Scholastic Distinction, ASD, a special program geared toward gifted and talented students tailored to their exceptional abilities and extraordinary potential academic achievement. It said a lot more, about school transfer paperwork and registration forms, and which bus route would take me to my new placement at the academy. I barely saw any of it. My eyes couldn't get past the words, like excellent, distinction, gifted, especially Donovan Curtis. Gifted? Me? I was a guy who skateboarded down the water slides and shot a super soaker at an electric fence. When people heard my name, they thought, don't try this at home, not gifted. I wasn't expelled. I was being promoted? Dad was was grinning from ear to ear. I always knew the real problem was that you weren't challenging you. Mom looked worried. Is everything okay? Donnie's gifted, Dad crowed. It's a mistake, Kitty scoffed. The kid's about as gifted as a caterpillar. He brings home a bee and it sets him off 6 days of skywriting and fireworks. Much as I hated to agree with Katie, she had a point. My grades weren't terrible, but they were nothing to write home about. Come to think of it, I remembered the day all the nerds and brainiacs took the special aptitude test to see who got into the gifted program. I remembered it because nobody even asked me to give it a try. And I wasn't assaulted because I wasn't gifted. My eyes skipped down to the bottom of the page. My heartiest congratulations once again. Your child is credit to the Hardcastle Independent School District. Sincerely, Dr. Alonzo Schultz, Superintendent, HISD. Schultz. The only program Schultz would recommend me for was Alcatraz. Didn't he realize who I was? I mean, the guy made a point of getting my name so he'd know exactly who to burn at the stake. It came to me in a giddy flashback on the day of the incident. Right after Schultz let me go, his secretary asked for the roster of new kids for the academy. The superintendent response was the last thing I remembered before bouncing out of there. His exact words, "It was on my desk, Cynthia. You can't miss it." Had that big doofus scribbled my name on the gifted list by accident, and everyone else thought it was there because it was supposed to be? It seemed crazy, but it did explain the two inexplicable things going on in my life right now. One, while Schultz hadn't come to kill me yet, and two, why I'd just been invited to go to a genius school. I laughed out loud. People thought I acted without thinking. This was 1,000 times worse than hitting a statue with a twig. It was a shoo-in for the Bonehead Moves Hall of Fame. What's so funny, Dad asked. I almost spilled the beans. How many chances do you get to show the guy who runs the entire city school system is an even bigger dipstick than you are? Besides, it's not like my parents weren't going to find out eventually. Sooner or later, Schultz would realize his mistake and... Or would he? The only district officials who saw me that day were Schultz and his secretary, and neither of them had ever met me before. They worked in an administration building, not Hardcastle Middle School. The paper my name was written on was surely gone now, crumpled in a waste paper basket or fed through a paper shredder. The only thing that superintendent knew about me was the school I went to. That was the only way he could get to me. The gifted letter tingled in my hands. If I was at the academy, he wouldn't be able to find me. It was the realm of brainiacs and goody-goodies, and the last place it looked for a kid who put a bronze globe through a glass door. A tiny voice spoke from the depths of my spleen. Forget it, not in a million years. You won't last 10 minutes in the gifted program. There's never been anybody more ungifted than you. Mom was flushed with happiness. I always knew this day would come. It was only a matter of time before people realized how special you are. She sniffled back a tear of emotion. Beatrice was our good luck charm. Things are finally starting to turn around for this family. I can feel it. I feel it too, added Dad, putting his arm around her. Wait a minute. Beatrice? His eyes strayed to the hall where the languid Chow Chow was chewing up his newspaper, reducing it to an inky pulp. Up until that instant, I honestly don't think I was going to go through with it. But since Brad had shipped out and Katie had moved back in, the tension in our house had been simmering just below the boiling point. And now the extra stress with the stupid dog, how could I pile my own problems on top of that? Especially when Mom and Dad looked so proud, something that didn't happen every day where I was concerned. I thought of my namesake, James Donovan, on the foundering Titanic. What would he do, sink or swim? Gifted, I said louder, as if trying it on for sight. I guess I better go to school and clean out my locker. We'll see what happens next.